these halls of that Senate. I don't even know how you can call it senatorial anymore with the demeanor with which, I have to say it, but with which white men, entitled white men, of which, I'm a privileged guy myself. But you know it when you see it. I've grown up with guys like Brett. I went to Harvard with men like Brett. I've seen this throughout my life at high-powered law firms and even in the halls of our California Senate. We had some very brave women come forward over the last 2 years. Triggered early on from the Me Too movement, but something that became more than that. Where a staffer, an intern, someone with no power or no leverage in a dynamic where someone has a big pin and a big title and walks around with swagger, they found that courage through a network of women and of men who stood by their side to say, even here in California, we have our challenges. And we actually had to clean house a little bit. I dealt with a colleague of my own in the Senate who thought it was okay to, on repeated occasions, invite a young woman up to his hotel room and to various conferences on a 19-year-old girl, an intern in his office. He said, well, I didn't do anything. I never touched her. I certainly didn't assault her. He asked her 6 times. He asked his former staff 7 times. They made special accommodations for a room that was en suite to his room. Invited them to partake in a complimentary bar and have a rum and coke with him before going out. Those little invitations you can dismiss. And you can say, this wasn't an assault. But first of all, the way the law works, and second of all, the way our politics ought to work, is that you don't have to even cross that line to do something that is irreparable to someone who has no power, who's just trying to get their resume to the top of the stack, to make it in their career, and to find that footing to become a press secretary, to become a senator themselves. And it was so ugly and embarrassing, frankly, that in this place that I saw as this bastion of progress, to see we are far from perfect. And we have our own reckoning to deal with. But we've turned a corner. And for the first time in California history, a woman leads the Senate. And her name is Toni Atkins. And I was so proud that somebody like that stepped up. Mind you, first LGBT leader also of our Senate. And somebody who grew up as a gay woman in Western Virginia. Father's a coal miner. Rough and tumble. Not easy. But she carries that, whatever that burden has been, with such grace, such humility, that I recognize in so many people in this room too. Because the generation that achieved this progress, that I get to enjoy, and that my colleagues and friends, my generation, men and women, get to enjoy, was not just, didn't just emanate magically. It was won. It was won through huge national political movements, but it was also won through small moments, those interstitial conversations, those challenges that I know many of you faced, especially as women who said, you know what, I'm going to not just get a high school education, I'm going to go a little further than that. Actually, I'm going to go a little further than that. And I'm going to just keep punching up. But today, I guess, I was uncomfortable, to be honest, at some point, sitting here and talking about male feminism, because the stories that you all have built in your lives, and the things that brought you here today, to me, is much more interesting than what I have to say. And a lot of times what we're missing in our dialogue is just not talking at all. For guys just to listen and to actually understand where this comes from. Because I'll tell you, when I grew up and I've lived on my own and tried to make my way in this world, there are a lot of things that I just didn't have to deal with. A lot of thoughts that just didn't cross my mind. Getting a single apartment on the first floor of a building, or not locking your windows at night, or how you take your keys to the door of your apartment. And I remember my mom told me that, you had to put the 3 keys through your knuckles in New York City. Does anybody remember that? Lesson on how you're supposed to open your door? I didn't know what that was. It never crossed my mind living in Boston or New York City or all the amazing places I've got to go. What about making sure that you have cab money on you back when we had cabs? Or that you're having a first date in a public place? These are the small things. There's huge fights for justice out there that AUW has frankly been on the tip of the spear of. But those small moments shape you. And I want to hear what those are. We have a little bit of time here. But I want to tell you first what brought me here today, and then I wanted to ask you what might have brought you here today. And maybe if we can have a little bit of a conversation, I thought it'd be a little different way than just talking at you for 20 minutes. What brought me here today was my mom, Laura Stern. She's here. And my mom, actually brought me here. I arrived with her on this planet. I will say I was not too burdensome for that first. I was on time, unlike this morning. And hopefully not, too painful, at least at first. The pain sort of came later, dealing with me in adolescence. But my mom is a leader. My mom taught me how to be unapologetic and fierce, whether it's some jerk giving her a hard time in traffic on the way to elementary school, right? How you give somebody a piece of your mind, like for real. But also how to build a community and the power of feminine leadership not being something just pretty to look at or good at the centerpiece, but a source of power and leverage and might. Building a Boys and Girls Club in my community where everyone said, the kids are fine. She said, after Columbine, she built this foundation for youth and families. And she went out to the Indian reservation where kids had been in a red gloves, put herself through the paces of what is fracturing our families and our communities, and just got to work. I didn't just feel sanguine and sad and maybe write a check and walk away, but dug in. And that Boys and Girls Club is still standing to this day. And my hometown is more vibrant and more kids' lives been saved because of that little safety net where we caught all those kids who were going to slip through. They're still catching them. Kids dealing with mental health issues and stress and pain at home and a family that wasn't there. But the other key component that got me here today was my dad. Right? Because my mom was the source of power in our family, but my dad showed me what it was to be a good man. And how the role of the father is one of not just being the tough guy, right? Not just saying, son, you need to be a man. Don't cry. Don't show that other side of it. My dad's the guy who was playing music in the living room and dancing and giving me kisses as a young kid and unapologetically affectionate and willing to show his own weakness and cried way faster at weddings and other, than my mom every time. A blubbering mess. A lovely, wonderful man who shows so much strength in that willingness to just be free. And I'm grateful for that, and I see it in my sisters too. When you have that kind of home where the man is exhibiting that behavior, they find strength in themselves, and it's sort of that good feeling begets more good feeling. And now Sophie, my sister, who is, don't follow her on Instagram, please, or Facebook, because she is a radical, a little bit more radical than I am, but it's all caps for a reason, because she's pissed off, and she's happy. So if you want a little therapy, but she's out there with her young son trying to be a pop star in Hollywood. But as a pregnant woman trying to come up and establish your career and working under management with all kinds of women in their stable, the kind of talk coming out of the production company that she had to sign up with and go through. But she said, forget you guys. I'm going to do this my own way. I'm going to go be a pop star. Yeah, and I'm pregnant too. I'm going to be a mother, and I'm going to be beautiful. Unifying those things in our pop culture is so big. And so, between Sophie and then my other sister, Ella, who's going to be an OBGYN and is truly the best kid in the family by far, because, her first day on the job was delivering a baby in the back seat of a car off the freeway in Portland, bringing somebody back to life. So I know I'm spending time talking about home, and I see it, Bonnie. I got you. But in those little microcosms, everything else is built. And how you build yourself up personally as a young man is everything. And we're not teaching young men that there's a different way to be. That it's not just about manning up every time. When they say be a man, what does that mean? That means don't cry. That means don't show that emotion. That means, don't show any kind of creativity or sensitivity. That means, put your head down. And I don't think that's what it is to be a man. I think there's a very different way to go about this work. And it's the work I'm going to have to do for you all for the rest of my life. But, I want to know that we have a few minutes left. But I know there's some incredible stories here today. So I was curious, I told you what brought me here and how I had this opportunity, but I do want to know. And this goes back to, my grandmother, who, 1941, running HR at the first Depart Bullets in Hollywood, a wartime graduate of UC Berkeley at a time when women didn't go to Berkeley. I know what knowledge there is in this room, and I know what those fights were back in that era. Watching my mom coming up through the 60s in that era. But this new generation, we need you. So AUW is an amazing bridge in that way. When the young women here from the Tech Trek, you guys, you're the other end of that bridge, that rainbow, if you will, right? And all the hopes and dreams of this generation, it's a lot of pressure because you're all we got. But I think you're up for it. I think you're up for it. You got a mountain to climb though, because I will tell you, 1% of our IT communications industry, 1% of the coders and engineers are women right now in California. We talk about we're the Silicon Valley and Silicon Beach and the home of innovation. 1%. I was just in former Soviet Union, visiting Armenia, looking at their tech industry. 35% of the women in that little country, 35% of their workforce are women there. And you know what? They're way punching ahead of us on a dollar per capita basis in terms of the innovation they're getting, because we're leaving talent on the table. It's not just about fairness. We're just dumb if we don't lift up young women and let them get into careers in engineering and science and technology and leadership. It's just foolish economics. Set aside the immorality or ugliness of it. It's just dumb. So let's get smart and let's see what you guys can do, because the world is yours.